And here. And we are live, back again. Apologies for missing last week's show, but I told you all I was traveling. And on that trip, so much happened other than me getting to know a country and a place that I had not known before and feeling really at home there. I met a lot of amazing people. So, big tip for today, for our show today, is very simple: trust your intuition. And if something or someone tells you to go, go. Very simple. Because as it happens, what occurred then suddenly was, aside from me loving the place and meeting really, really cool people, I met the guest for today. And somehow there's a connection. And you know what it is? When we have a connection, we need to be in that connection mode. And then my other guest for today had an emergency. And that happens too, as we know. So I turned around and said to this lovely lady, I said, "So what are you doing Tuesday?" And she said, "Well, I'll be talking to you." And of course, and so it is, as we always say. So I'm going to bring up a fellow German and we're going to talk in English. So it's going to be fun. Hello, Antonia. How you doing?
Hi, Natalie. I'm wonderful. Thank you so much.
I love the blue behind you. It reminds me of the sea.
Yes. Last flashback to last week.
Yes. Now, I brought Antonia in because when I was talking with her, other than hearing about her amazing journey, Hamburg is in there, as I said, Hamburg and a lot of other places, which I'll ask her about in a moment. She also talked about source and intention in a way that I have not heard before. And so that's why I wanted her here. So just as a heads up. So Antonia, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? I could read your bio, I could make all the accolades, but tell us a little bit from the heart about yourself, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, I'd love to. I would share from my heart. I'm a visionary heart, so I really see potential. I see a lot of connections before other people see them. So I love also bringing people together, and I love guiding and supporting to really connect with the inner wisdom, with the higher wisdom, and as I call it, also connecting with source. So it's our inner source, it's the divine source, it's Mother Earth, however you call it, however you name it. So my whole life and my whole business journey somehow circles around intuition, around stepping into our purpose, into following our vocation, and creating and co-creating with intention. And this is part of the magic that I feel when we step into taking action on our vision and on our inspired moments, that we take action and we follow the nudges that we receive from life, from maybe nature, from what we hear, from a meditation, wherever the nudge comes from. But if we act upon it, magic can happen. And I'm all about that in life and in business, because I feel in business we can have so much more magic if we let it in.
Mm-hmm. Well, define magic, because some people are probably going to go, "Oh my God, what are we talking about? Magic? What do you mean? When you say magic, what do you mean?"
When I say magic, I mean, what some people would call coincidences, so that we just say the right word to the right person and it leads to the next conversation. It leads, for example, to today, because I shared with you and then we had both the same idea while we were not in the same room. And then I feel it's following these pieces that creates like, I would say, magic opportunities that wouldn't have been there if we wouldn't have followed. And if we wouldn't have also felt into like the inspiration with when we meet someone, and sometimes we haven't spoken even to the people yet, but there's something, and then following this brings opportunities and new pathways and new horizons that we haven't seen before. That's what is what I call magic.
Yeah. And the magic happens like that because it's not pre-planned, and you follow that intuition and the guidance. And tell us a little bit about your journey. You don't have to only talk about Hamburg, even though you could. But you're a source leadership mentor, you're a coach, you're a consultant, you have wisdom, wayfinders of wisdom. So you don't just work with individuals, you don't just work with nature and source in that sense. And I think the most important thing for some people might be your training. So, where did you get your training at to do the things and to connect the way that you do?
I feel part of my, like, on the spiritual side, the training started in my childhood because I grew up in a Tibetan Buddhist community in Bavaria. So I was already in between cultures, always, not in between, but like holding them both. And after school, I started with graphic design, which I did in Hamburg, which was, for my brain, something was missing. So I was 1 year in Hamburg and I worked in a consulting agency. And there I found the next step, which was going into business and doing my MBA. And not just at the university, but in a way that I worked in a company, a very conscious ecological company, and I was visiting the academy to do my MBA. And for me, this was the beginning of bridging also these worlds of being in business and at the same time being connected to an inner guidance and following this, even if it looked really strange to some people, like, you're doing business now, like, are you crazy? Because I was an artist, and like there was nothing business in my childhood, but it was a natural flow of these next steps that led me there. And one significant moment was actually at the fish market in Hamburg in the morning, at 4:00 in the morning. So sometimes when you tell your dreams to someone, it can seem like the random person, and it's just the perfect person. So,
but it's important that you don't tell everybody, right? It has to be the right person, right?
Yes.
The intuition part.
Yes, and then really, I feel the moment we speak about our dreams and about the insights that we had, the spark is very alive in us, and I think that comes with speaking to the right person, or maybe it's even a group of people, and they will feel it, and then maybe one resonates with it and says, oh, I have a next step, or can I invite you, or do you want to have another conversation? And then we see if there's something that can come out of it. Yeah,
absolutely. And you just mentioned art.
Yes,
I'm going to come back to your training and all of that, but you just mentioned art, so I want to show this image.
Yes.
Which I sort of, just to let everybody know, I sort of used it because it's in the public domain, and then I told her I'm using it, so I think I have permission to use it. I follow my intuition. But this image, I believe you created it. What does it mean? What does it stand for?
This image stands for my new venture, my new initiative. It's called Wisdom Wayfinder, and it holds both. It holds life guidance and business. And the picture with the boat and the people on the boat is for me, it's like a transformation from the ancient Polynesian culture, where they were the wayfinders, and they went over the ocean just by looking at the stars, watching the currents, knowing the tides, knowing nature, and listening. And I translate this to the inner guidance, to our inner North Star, to our inner guiding system of knowing also the currents in our life, acknowledging them, like pausing and action. And the whale to me is a very, very dear being. It's one of my guides. And in the story of the Wayfinders, which even goes back to the Maoris, they were guided with their boats to New Zealand by the whales. So it's, for me, it's an inspired version of listening to our inner guidance while we take action in the world and follow our passion and our vocation, so that we can really lead a unique life and walk this unique path. And like Wisdom Wayfinder, find our unique way, which is sometimes, it takes courage and it takes trust and it takes following these nudges to really do it. And this is all in there, and it's the beginning of this new venture, where I really see an academy and a connection hub, because I feel that there is so much already out there. We don't have to reinvent everything. And to acknowledge what is there, and to see what is there, and then to find what is the right piece of the puzzle for us. So in the academy, it will be other teachers and other mentors as well, because I don't hold all the wisdom. I have some.
You don't?
No, not at all. But there are a lot of them which I already have in mind, where I want to have this person for, or the connection to nature.
Yeah.
I'm connected to nature. And at the same time, I know I have a lot of amazing friends and mentors who are really into it, and they can share about it in amazing ways. So I will bring them in to share their part of the picture, so that people can really feel and see what is theirs to connect also with the intuition, because not everybody connects in the same way, and not everybody has the same uses the senses in the same way.
Right.
Some people see things, they really have visions that are really colorful, and some people say, I don't see anything, I don't have a vision, but they know, or they
right, yeah,
or they hear a voice saying something. So it's very, very unique to every person, and just love to open this whole bunch of opportunities to where actually a lot of my trainings will come in, because I learned from so many different traditions, and to me it's like I'm ever curious, I'm ever in awe of what is already there, and what also the indigenous cultures had to already discovered, what I'm rediscovering now. So it's really, so you picked the perfect picture, because it's the most recent one.
Well, it's also, I want to bring it back up, because you mentioned sort of everything. It's interesting, the whale. What I really saw was, the bird.
Yes.
So to me, interestingly enough, the bird stood out. And of course the stars, when you think about in ancient times, how were you able to navigate? You had the stars.
Yes, and the bird actually is also playing with the whale and the bird. It's also playing with the different perspectives that we take. Because sometimes it takes us to take the higher perspective of the eagle or the condor, to really be high and watch and see our life and see the bigger picture. And I did a lot of work with vision work with the bigger picture, because a lot of people, they just see the next step, or they see a vision somewhere very far away, but they cannot see how they can get there, and they get stuck, because it's like they're stuck in the distance and frozen maybe. But if we take this picture, this higher picture, that's the bird, That's the moment where we really go up and where we see the connection and where we see that maybe something that happened in the past makes total new sense suddenly. It's like, oh, that's why.
Yeah, it's that 360 degree that we always talk about. It's like, oh wow, now I see how it all fits. Yeah.
And this it's just like, it's like we see the pearls on the necklace, and then suddenly it's like, oh, then that's the next step. So it's enough if we know the next step, and it's trusting this and really taking this next step without knowing step number 25, right?
But that's tricky, isn't it?
I know, and it's completely against what we learned before, how we do business and how we do life. Like we learned we need the plans, we need the exact 5-year plans. Like I'm trained in all these things, and I was many years a business coach, and I stepped more and more onto the like the energetic side of business. Without these strict plans. I mean, it's still, I think it's valuable to have a plan because it's the direction and the intention that we hold. And if we feel a direction and we feel the vision, even if it's not clear, like we cannot draw like everything, it's not the vision that we would put in a business plan because maybe we cannot really voice it yet. But as long as we keep moving, we can always adjust the plan. Yeah. So it's I'm not one who says I have no plan at all, because then probably nothing would happen.
Right.
So it's like setting these steps and seeing milestones, and then if something else happens completely different, still be open to welcome that in.
Yeah.
Even if it's beyond our plan or it's a direction that we didn't think of before. So if opportunities come, to always, not always, but to also be aware of, oh, that's opening. So it's this wider view, what you said, 360 degrees, or maybe it's 180, but it's not just like seeing the next step, but it's seeing the bigger picture and being ready to welcome the opportunities when they come, even sometimes if they don't make sense yet. So it's like, for example,
how do you do that
interview.
though? Yeah. How do you do that in business? Because we've been trained, and we're still being trained to have a business plan, even if it's just a one-pager. And then if we're trying to find partners or sponsors or fundraise, then we need to have a pitch deck, and we need to lay out where the money is coming from, how it goes, what will be year 2, 3, 4, 5. You know this better than I do. How do we shift that? And I know you talk a lot about that, but since you brought it up right now, so how do we shift from having the business blinders on of, okay, I need to go here, even though I have a vision that's larger, but I need to check, to, wow, I thought I was going to go to door A, but my intuition says, how do we do that?
I think it's like a subtle dance. And again, it's different for every business and every size. Like if you need a lot of investors and like there's a lot of money involved, you probably need a more defined plan. And if the venture is more includes fewer people, it's maybe easier. Maybe depends on the people. But I feel one thing that I've found in the last year is really essential is to really know the vision and have a team and have people that come together that trust the visionary and that trust this person, as I call it, as the source of the business. Because then if this person has an intuitive realignment, they will be still on board because they trust that the direction is for the highest good of the whole venture. Yeah. And I personally don't think that we shall throw away all what we did before. For me, it's more like transmuting it and seeing the pieces that are really valuable and using them, because there are great tools in there. As long as we don't think we have to use them all because we are supposed to, because they're on the you should list,
Oh yes, the should list.
Because when we have this you should list, then we're just squeezed into, I have to do social media like this, and I have to do this like this, and then we're like, we cannot move, we cannot fly, we cannot navigate freely. And at the same time, if I know that a webinar would be the best thing to promote the new project, I can go somewhere and see how do I do webinars, and I can learn, I take the structure and I can implement it, because that's the piece that I want for my puzzle. It's a completely different approach to, I have to do it like this, to, oh, this is what comes up. And now I take the knowledge, maybe I learned it even 3 years ago. So I go back to it and I ask an expert and I say, can you help me set up this webinar and help me with the structure so that it works? And it's a whole more, like I even feel in my body when I speak it. It's more playful, and it's at the same time it can be very, very efficient and very powerful. So it's and I personally believe it's easier to do the shift in smaller teams, because big companies have they have so many more structures and rules, and the visionary, the founder, is so far away from the daily business. So I feel like when it's still like when you have a startup, when you have a leadership team where the founder is still there, I personally feel that it's easier to do the shifts. And at the same time, I feel it takes courage of all the participating team members or employees to do it differently than we should do.
So let's talk about courage a little bit, because the one thing that pops always into my head is it's not just courage, but it's also the way that you're describing it. It to me, it is connected to self-trust, because you're saying not just be flexible, you're also saying delegate. You have a vision, trust your vision. However, the world is telling you, as you mentioned, if you want to be successful, step A, B, C, you need to do this now. In your internal guidance system, my IGS, as I like to call it, might say, no, it's not going to work. I hate being on camera. I don't want to do this. And then you're doing the webinar and it really doesn't work. So how much is the courage connected to self-trust, in your opinion, because you need to delegate?
Yeah. Well, what I first of all, I would say it's very deeply connected. And it's also, it starts with our self-trust, that we trust in the intuition, that we trust in the next step that we see. And at the same time, it's trusting, for example, our team members, so that they can have their, like I call it, a specific source. If there is a marketing manager who does amazing work and who holds a vision for the marketing for my project, then it's time for me to trust that person, so that this person can do it in her inner guidance, so that then she can follow this and she still holds the big picture, or steps into it with me. And at the same time, it's for me trusting her that she will do the best that she can with connecting to her part of the vision. So I feel it's a new way of also working in the team, which is beyond the old hierarchical system that we had, because it's about responsibilities and about also empowering the employees or business partners, or if I'm in a business partnership, it's also trusting that if the other person is the initiator of this, to trust them with their piece. And at the same time, always be honest with myself, which comes back to self-trust, to really, like, self-trust to me comes also with the courage to be honest with myself. Because sometimes it takes even courage to think the thought.
Yes. It's like, oh, no, I don't want it. I don't want it.
Sometimes we can ignore thoughts a long time. Like we have some knowing, and we just put it to the side because it would be maybe uncomfortable to move forward, or it's just too big, or it's just too new, or or whatever, like whatever mind game we have.
Or you really want to, I always have that where I really want this to be right, or I really want this to work, and it's like everything pops up and it's like, no, not now, until and then I do want to give a quick shout out to Judith. Hi Judith, who's also amazing, of course, with courage, confidence, and trust, and giving people the power of their genius and owning their source energy is really what she loves about your work. And there is more that she loves, which I'll pull up later. And of course, Shmiko has also been commenting, so thank you for that. The honor in wisdom. Before we go to a short break, how much do you think, this is like a question that I always consider, how much do you think the part that you said, you have to trust your team member to step into their wisdom and all of that, how much do you think that has to do with you trusting yourself to handle whatever may happen? Because you may know that this person actually can't do the job, but you just want to believe that they can't. You want to give them a chance. So are they connected in your mind?
Yeah, they're connected in my mind. And to me, it's a difference. Like if I look at a team, I feel that there are some people who just do a job. And maybe they are perfect at that and they are fine with that. And this is part of their life's mission, life's work, whatever. They do their job, and then maybe they have a dream that they come true at the weekend because there's something that they're really passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And they're inspired people who really share my vision and who really come forward. They also take initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone sharing a new project passionately and really seeing it. This is to me a completely different, because it's not me giving this person a role or a job. It's this person suggesting, how about we do it like that? And this person is connected to this version of a project. And then for me saying, great, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a whole different energy from me giving someone a task to do and then hoping that they will do it.
Right. Yes.
I mean, sometimes that's like it. And it's a subtle dance. And it's also in business partnerships. It's like, it's a lot about communication. It's a lot about really voicing expectations. And like, there's so many levels to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this part of who is initiating and who is bringing their spark, I would say, to the fire. It's one of the layers. Yeah, there's so much more to it, because it's like to make a collaboration successful. Like there's a lot to it. So I speak to this energetic level of initiative, and it's also the people in the team taking initiative and being creative. And I feel that the more that they are connected, there's this beautiful book of Simon Sinek, Start With Why. The more that they are connected to the why of the company, and it merges with why they are here in this life, the more they're in sync, and they also go into the same direction. And the more they will understand, even if I make a comment and I say, what do you think? Shall we just move it in that way? And they will get it.
Right.
Yeah, because they're connected to the direction and to why we are here and what the mission of the project or of the company is.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk more about the initiative in a moment.
Yes.
But I also have the job of keeping time. So I wanted to take a tiny little break, just about, 40 seconds, maybe a minute. And then when we come back, I'd like to talk more about the initiative piece. I'd also like to talk about your training in Italy just for a moment, because I think it's fun, and your book. Is that okay with you?
Perfect.
All right. So everybody stay tuned.
See you in a moment.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
So as you know, we're talking to Antonia Daniek today, and she'll be back in just one second. Before I bring her back, I want to thank everybody in the audience. Love the interactions. And I also want to just point out on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune, of course, that there are other shows. Rex Sykes has an amazing show. Michelle Wilson, Michelle Quevedo. We have a lot of really cool shows. So just check it out, because there may be something internally guiding you to be here. Just saying, follow your internal guidance system, follow your wisdom. And with that said, I want to bring back Antonia, because the idea of initiative, intention, is, in my opinion, crucial. And that's why when we talked, when was it, yesterday? No, 2 days ago.
Sunday. It was Sunday.
Yeah. Well, we talked Sunday at the airport. We even didn't hear the announcement for the flight. That's how much we were into the conversation. Okay.
But we
I'm
made
still
it.
doubting that there was an announcement. I keep thinking about that because I think it's so true. At the same time, there are things, I want you to explain it because I think you can. There are things where we feel, oh my gosh, this would be so awesome to do. And we take the initiative and we start to run with it. And we have the initiative. We have the intention of making this great. We get the support from other people. And then suddenly we're like a balloon. We just can't continue. So everything that you thus far mentioned is in place. But still, then it doesn't go any further. How do you approach that?
I would approach that in having a deeper inquiry with the person who started it, with this, I call the source or the initiator, to find out if it's, I see different, like it could be a pause that this person needs to take, a pause from acting or from being active, maybe a retreat, or really going inside and readjusting. Maybe the vision shifted, maybe the purpose shifted, maybe there's an alignment that needs to be done. So giving this time and space, and this, for me, it would start with a conversation, with questions, with inquiry and contemplation. And then different versions can come up. It can come up that it's time to realign, and then suddenly the spark is back. Or sometimes it even happens that the time of the project is just done. It's like it's complete. The value and the what I wanted to have from it is there, and then maybe I'm called to do something else. Or, for example, it's time for me to step out of the initiative as the founder, and then I can pass it on to someone else. That is what I did with a project that I had here in Munich. I found someone to take over, and there are specific things that Peter Koenig found. When they happen, it works, that we can transfer this role of the visionary to someone else, and that the initiative can thrive again and shift and move with the new person. And I can really step out of, also energetically, and out of the responsibility, and step out of it, and the initiative can live on. Sometimes the initiative is just done, and it's like, if we don't find someone to pass on the baton, it's dying. And in fact, a lot, I don't know the exact number, but like something like 80% of the successions of companies is really unsuccessful. So there's a lot in there. And I feel if the balloon comes together, it can be physical rejuvenation for the founder. It can be time to readjust the direction, or to work or be honest with the team, or time to pass it on or let it die, which is, I think, the most for me always, like when I say it, it's like, but sometimes we hang on to projects so long, and the moment of being honest with maybe it's time to let it go and really close it in a good way, it's also something that can come up, which also takes courage to look at. And then we're back with self-trust and everything.
Right. So let's dive for just a moment into the idea of the visionary of a larger company, for example. Handing over the vision. Because what I see in a lot of companies is that the vision is here somewhere, and everybody's working, and the managers in between, some of them are leaders, some of them are managers, but the vision gets sort of lost most of the time, and everybody's just on their task. So now, other than needing to change that, now the visionary wants to retire, whatever, wants to retire, is old, needs to move on to another project. How does this work? Because on paper it's easy, but how does this vision transition work?
Well, Peter was really researching this for like 20 years. He was in Canada, and he worked with family businesses, with the fathers and the sons, or the grandfathers. And he really researched how, like, where it worked, what happened, and how they did it. And one of the pieces is to really have someone who wants to take it over, like someone who's really willing to hold the flag and be the new person. And the other one really needs to let go, be willing to let go. And then very often it's a process that takes longer to really find the right person, the right moment.
Right.
And then it can be in a kind of a ritual or something. And then it not always works, but still it really needs the willingness of both. And I think also of the team holding. I mean, they hold the vision with them. And you said it so beautiful. It's like sometimes the vision is here and the company is here. So even if you pass it on, it's not said that this new person is then really connected with the team.
Yeah.
So this is another topic of staying connected with the vision if the corporation or the company is large. I think it was one of the greatest challenges to stay connected to where we wanted to go. And for example, one recent example that I witnessed with Bob Proctor passing is I experienced in the last years already that Sandy Gallagher, she had already really taken over like all the responsibilities and everything. And he was very present. He was still teaching, and they were a beautiful team. And to me, even now when I see ads or him speaking somewhere, and then she's speaking, so they weave her in more now. And there I feel that the energy is totally still there. And it's like he continues to inspire, and she's holding beautiful the company. And this is one example where I feel that it worked, like without diving into it. But I can really feel that they prepared it for many, many years. It's not just like, oh, well, if something happens, you take over. No, it's like they really created something together, which is a amazing co-creation. And now his spirit and his wisdom still lives in there. And at the same time, she really holds the vision, and she has the steering wheel. Like she's the one navigating. And it
is so true, because that transition, the transition wasn't like this. And it's interesting because before you brought up this example, I was like, okay, in a family business, how do people react if an outsider wants to take over? However, Bob Proctor, that is a great example for how it can work if both sides know either I want to retire or sooner or later I'm going to transition. It's like it's a perfect match. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for that example. And this brings me in no direct way to the other thing that I really want to talk about. So you were in Hamburg, you were doing graphic design, then you ended up in business, and
Yes.
then somehow you ended up with that connection to the coaching in Italy.
Yes.
So how did that happen?
So there was some bits and pieces in between.
Yes, of course.
I did my business education in Augsburg, here in south of Germany, and in a Verwaltungs- und Wirtschaftsakademie. So it's almost university. And it was very nice because it was just 11 students. So we were very oriented on like, this is in theory, it works like this, and practically in our company, it works like that. So we had a 4-year training of how the theory is actually implemented in the company. And I had the honor to do this education in Primavera, which is a company that has natural cosmetics and essential oils and a lot of organic projects. And there I was in contact with Feng Shui. I did all my educations parallel to working, so with working with the earth and everything. And then I had one point where I knew that I would move on from there, and I quit my job 1 year in advance to find someone to be a good successor. And then half a year later, I'm connected with my ex-husband again, and we remarried, which is another big story. And then the children came, so I had like a natural gap in my work life. And when the third child was there, I really felt called to do more again, and I had all these educations. And the piece that I was missing was the coaching part. Like, really, how do I communicate? How do I ask the questions? This is one of my greatest treasures, is feeling and following my intuition, asking the question that will give the person the answer. It's just magical. And I did a trance coaching training just for myself, just to feel into it, and did some health coaching. And then they offered a real coaching education with all bits and pieces. And I was like, I do this in Germany. And they canceled it. And on the train home, like an 8-hour train to where we lived, suddenly I understood that I don't need to do it in Germany. And the same education 3 months later started in Italy. And it was even easier to go there because it was just one flight and not an 8-hour train. So I ended up being there with 160 Italians in their spirit and their joy of life, and 20 non-Italians. So I managed again to do my education, like the Feng Shui education, all in English. So it was very natural for me always to, except for the masters I did in German, but I just stepped into it and I enjoyed it. And it led me to afterwards being a long time a business coach for mothers, especially. I wanted to do something else after the children.
Right.
But again, and like, I did an interview, and the next day I got a call, like, you're my coach. And I'm like, what? Why? She said, you have 3 kids and you understand my private life, so we don't need to talk about it, but you can support me in finding my path in my own business without me needing to explain how it is to have 3 kids.
Right.
And I personally had some business coaches who didn't get it. And I was like, okay, you can just let them go, because if they don't have family and maybe are not even in a relationship, young men, it's like, they cannot be my coach. It's like, this doesn't work.
No, that doesn't connect, right?
No, it's like, oh, if you want to work in English, you could move to England. And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Now, the one part about your story where you were on the train because they canceled it, right?
Yeah.
They canceled the training. For most people, that would have been, okay, I'm done with this. I'm now going to do something else. Even if they had seen a flyer, this is also going to happen in Italy.
Yeah.
They would have been, no, this is my sign that I'm not supposed to do this.
Yes.
What's the difference between identifying that as a sign, no, I'm not supposed to do that, and saying, whoa, there's one in Italy?
Which was even more fun. So what's the sign? I think the question that you're asking comes up in so many other occasions as well. It's like, is it a roadblock where we need to turn? Or is it maybe just an inner challenge that comes up that is part of the journey? And in this specific situation, for me at that moment, it was very easy. I had the insight and I was like, yeah, sure. So it's just a little later. And if I would take it as a sign to stop, it could have been because I was looking for an excuse to stop.
See?
And I think this is a very, very interesting question when we take it a little further. It's like, when is it my intuition telling me to stop? And when is it just self-doubt or procrastination or fear of moving forward? So this is really, really something where I'm still balancing it, and sometimes I'm also like, oh gosh,
I'm with you. I'm like, oh my gosh.
And then it's also I just heard this beautiful sentence last weekend of, you're always in the right time. Like, you cannot lose time. If the sign is for you, it comes back. And this was really relaxing for my system. If now that I do this work, it's like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And then another, like, I didn't take this opportunity, and then another will come. Like, if it's on my path, maybe half a year later, I would have found something else. Or, so, and at the same time, I think it's really important to be honest with ourselves and maybe training our awareness to, when is it a belief, a fear? And when is it it's just not happening, whatever we do. And then just that we decide, okay, I just move the direction. Because moving on our path is not about fighting. It's not about pushing through. And if I feel like in the past years, I still have it a little bit, but I had the tendency very much to put a lot in my diary, put pressure on myself with very short time frames and everything. So I set myself up for stress or for failure. And then a friend of mine, she was like, I had these days when I called her and she said, where's your eraser?
Right. No,
and then
don't
I
do
just
all of that.
some pieces off, or I just stretch the timeline. And a beautiful question that she asked me was, even if this is all part of your path, is it all to be done now? Or is it maybe a timeline? And since then, I really feel into what is it that I'm called to do now? And I still have a million ideas. So I journal them. I have them somewhere. I have like a parking lot. And some will never come to me. Some are for other people. For others, I know that the next step after this will be this. And then I personally put it on a timeline. And it's a little bit flexible, and usually it follows, or like my book, I have another book which is not yet written. I have a cover. This is the one we published within 2 weeks.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. So yes,
it was written and published within 2 weeks, and I have another one which is in me since 3 years, and I have parts of it, and it shifts and it swaps, and maybe it will never be written. So it's still there. I hold the space at the moment. I even I had the visual next to my computer for some time. And now it feels like something else is more important now to write about. Yeah. So it's also being flexible with that. And the putting it on a timeline for me really helped me to balance all this. I mean, a friend of mine, she's a healer, and she was some weeks ago, she was looking at me, she said, "You're an idea machine. You should sell your ideas." So but also to value this quality, and at the same time to take the pressure off myself to make all of them happen. Like I don't need, like I have a lot of ideas, but they're not all meant for me, and they're not all meant to be birthed through me. I can give them away, or maybe it's an idea to connect to people, and then they do their thing, and I'm off it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it's interesting, because if we have inspiration, it's sometimes also valuable to collect it and hold it, and not always act on it immediately.
Right.
Like, especially when we're in a pause or when we are realigning. I had this last year. I took like a several month pause, and I had a lot of things that came again and again. And then I knew, okay, this is really for me now. And other things came. And in like 4 years ago, I would have acted upon them all immediately, which would have led me into like 10 directions, which wouldn't help. Like, neither do people know me.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So it's a, like with I love what you said, the inner guiding system, IPS, or how do you call it?
IGS. Yeah.
IGS. So it's I think it's part of training our awareness and our consciousness of what is really calling us to do, and what is inspiration that comes through to be written or shared. Sometimes it's me sharing something with someone, and someone else hears it and they get their spark, and that's why I had to share it. So,
right.
Yeah.
And it is so true, right? We have those nudges. You know, if we don't see it the first time, it'll come back. But yet at the same time, we often we're so focused on, oh, there's an idea. So learning that differentiation, and as Dan agreed with you, a parking lot, I call it my archive. I have all of them in a file cabinet, and they'll come out when they need to.
Nice. Or a treasure chest. You can put
I know, it's like, and sometimes I need to, like you said, sometimes I need to give the file to somebody else to complete, right? It's like, I think that's the German filing system in me. Like, I don't have a parking lot, I have a filing system.
Maybe have a little airport.
I know. Yes. I do want to talk about your book for a moment. And I love the fact that you said it took you 2 weeks. And the reason why I love that is because I cannot write like 1 hour a day. I just can't. Maybe I should, because I'm German, but I don't do should. So it's like you said, it bubbles, and then I write it. And sometimes it might not be the first book that I wanted to write. So talk to us about the new Earthquest codes. What is it about?
It's a book that I wrote with someone else, with a lot of people. So I wrote part of it, and I was the initiator of the book. And afterwards, I was the project manager, I would say. And I had a beautiful co-captain. She was the head editor. And the new Earthquest was an online program that I was part of, which really jump-started my whole English journey, connecting with Australia and the UK and Scotland, everywhere. And we were collecting codes, like all the insights that we had. Every week we collected to a certain topic our insights in codes. We call you can imagine like headline for a film. Yeah, some little snippets that meant a lot to us. And in the final, I think we had 1 week left, and I was like, oh, we should write a book. And I shared this with the group, and then the facilitator, our trainer, our mentor, he messaged me and he said, hold it for a moment, don't just jump on it. And I was like, okay. And then in the final call, he asked us to collect these codes and go into breakout rooms and see what were the most important for us. So we collected them all together. And then he did a very smart thing, which I'm grateful forever. He sent us into our Facebook group. So we had to leave Zoom. we all went into our Facebook group and we went live and shared what this code means to us, what we think it means to humanity, and what it means to the all. And then we came back and he said, now you have your book, because everybody, like it was 24 people. Everyone spoke for 15 minutes. He said, transcribe it, and you have the basics of your book, and you have the chapters. And then he said, who wants to head the project? And I was like, I'm definitely willing to, because I had this inspiration already.
Right.
And then everybody who was good with editing, we had an editing team, so we edited each other's texts. And one woman who's a graphic designer, one night she was like, I saw some signs, and last night I created one for each code.
Wow.
So in the morning suddenly we had this. And then, which was interesting because you spoke about art, initially I wanted to ask her or someone else to create the art for the cover. And they all just gave it back to me. They were like, that's yours, that's yours, that's yours. And I was like, but I'm leading the project, and how can I step out and just connect and everything? And then Emily, my beautiful co-captain, she was like, we will do the editing and you will just step out 2 days, like just be offline and do your thing. And I did, and I was sketching one afternoon and one through night, and in the morning it was done. And in the morning, I think 4 or 5 a.m. the picture was there. And and then the graphic design, she re-edited it so that the color because the yellow always jumped off like in the middle. And it's a representation of the 4 directions of the medicine wheel. It has a lot of things mixed in, like how I am and how the whole group was. And then I think it took me 1 or 2 weeks more, and then we published it as an ebook on Amazon.
Yeah.
And awesome. And it was really, I think in this moment it was really important to do it so quickly, because the moment that everybody goes back into their daily life, it would have been harder to keep us together. So it was done quickly, and then the final editing took a little bit, like getting the format right, and publishing it. And this is an example of really what I loved, this co-creation of, like, here's the signal, the symbols, and here's this, and and then we had our launch day, which was just amazing, because we started with Australia and we ended in the US, so we had like a 2-day launch.
Oh wow, yeah.
And we made it to #1, I think, in Australia and in Germany and somewhere else, and we were like on one page with Simon Sinek, and I was just like, yes. So and these are just magical moments to what I feel is to experience this is so precious, because then my brain can get it, like, because it's something that I can remember, that I can share, that now I can share the story because there is a book. Right. So it's something that it's like a 3D proof of what happened, and and the idea of the whole book is to inspire people to find their codes and see what it means to them. Because we had always 3 people sharing about the same code, and it means something different for the different people. So it's like with values. A word means something different for a different person.
Right. Yeah. I love that story, and also because it shows so much about the other thing you've mentioned in the show. It's about being open, and just once you open up, everybody is sort of having their role that they pick themselves. Yes. It just starts coming together. There's no fighting. There's no ego. It's just like, okay, everything comes together. That's awesome. So we're almost out of time. I'm going to go 2 or 3 minutes over, and that's perfectly fine, because I also saw this picture, of course, the conscious creator. And
Yes.
everybody can find that on your Facebook page. So,
Yes.
it's perfectly fine. Okay. But the conscious creation or conscious co-creator is really sort of what you shared with us throughout this whole hour already.
Yes. Yes.
And so at the end of our show, what are like some more, because I can't say just nuggets, but what are some more nuggets, some more pieces of advice that you would love to leave the audience with?
What would I love to leave? Yeah, maybe an invitation to contemplate on the projects that you're part of and see if you're the initiator or if you're a supporter. And then really see, are all these projects that you initiated still meant to be and still living, or are there maybe some projects you want to let go of and pass on or just close? Because what I witness is when I have too many open doors or too many open projects, it can drain our energy. So, and when you're aware of what you started and when you're aware of where you support someone, to me, this is a precious first step to see where you're at, and then take decisions and conscious choices from that to see, okay, I with intention, I want to continue to support this person with their venture or with their vision, because it's part of my path as well. And with your own projects, to be really to continue with intention what you have started, or when you start something new, to really start it either alone or with someone else, with intention and with the awareness of that you hold the vision and that you can trust it and trust the inner nudges. And I call it conscious co-creator because I deeply believe that we always co-create, even if we are alone, because we co-create with life, we co-create with source, we co-create with the people around us. Like, I feel like I'm never alone. So that's why I call it conscious co-creator. And I'm on a mission to speak more about this and to share the power of being connected with our own source, the inner source, the divine source, to have all these interactions on a more aware and conscious level, because I feel that then they're so much more powerful and very joyful and beyond competition. So this is my final message.
Message received. I know some of that was for me, and it's actually a commitment that I made over this past weekend. So thank you for reconfirming. I appreciate that.
Okay. Tell me more in the future.
I will. Closing some projects. Yes. Thank you so much, Antonia. I was just looking over at the comments. There are so many, I can't pull all of them up, but we've got Dan, we've got Shmika, we've got Joy, we've got Judith. So I know this was impactful for a lot of people. You're easy to find as well on Facebook. So if anybody wants to connect with you,
Yes.
The name, it's very simple. Well, maybe not simple, but you've seen the name now for hours.
Yes, I'm on Instagram, Facebook. It's the easiest. And just if you have any more questions, just message me.
Absolutely.
And Conscious Co-Creator will be a program starting in May. So it's really bring the pieces together so that we can all live and create and co-create with a more intentional approach from the heart. Because when we are connected with our inner guidance, I feel like we can create from the heart, which is what I'm all about.
Yes. That's easy to see. And I can't wait for the conscious co-creator and then the Wayfinders and all of that. So for everybody who's listening right now, there probably in the future is going to be a second part to this. We'll see how many more new ideas were there. And I think we need to talk even more about the corporate business, because that's a fascinating issue when it comes to intention and the vision. So thank you, Antonia. I appreciate you making the time, Natalie, especially on the spur of the moment.
It was perfect timing, divine timing.
Yes, it was.
Do you have time? Yes.
Yes, of course. What are you doing at 2? Oh, I'm talking to you. That's how you're open to source.
I thought I would talk to you privately, and then you said, "Oh, actually, it's a for show." I'm like, perfect.
Exactly. It all works out. It always
Yes,
works
I
out.
welcome
Perfect
it into
timing.
my life, and I'm open to questions, suggestions, and connecting and
Thank you.
taking it further. Thank you so much, Natalie.
Yes, thank you. And everybody else, you know where to find the replays for this as well. Next week, I can already tell you the guest who has confirmed and who will be with me, and that is Miss Caroline Corey. You may have heard of her. She has done a bunch of movies that are very insightful. The last one was Superhuman, which a lot of us probably have watched. And then she has a new one, which we'll be talking about. So check in then too. Until then, thank you, everybody. Bye.